What if I told you that after Isengard fell and Saruman's power crumbled, the most unexpected visitor came knocking at his door? Not Gandalf seeking justice, not Aragorn demanding surrender, but Tom Bombadil himself, humming an old tune and wearing those same muddy yellow boots. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel where we explore the hidden corners of Middle-earth that most fans never think to examine. Today we're diving into one of the most fascinating what-if scenarios pulled straight from the deepest implications of Tolkien's legendarium. Picture this scene. The waters have receded from Isengard, leaving behind twisted metal, broken stone, and the ruins of what was once Saruman's seat of power. The White Wizard sits in his tower, stripped of his staff, his voice no longer holding the same commanding resonance. His army is scattered, his machines destroyed, and his alliance with Sauron effectively severed. This is when most would expect him to rage, to plot revenge, or to sink deeper into bitterness, but instead something entirely different happens. From the old forest comes a figure who hasn't left his borders in living memory. Tom Bombadil walks through the devastation of Isengard like he's strolling through a meadow, completely unaffected by the lingering malice in the stones or the shadow that still clings to Orthanc. He's not there as an agent of the White Council, not as anyone's messenger, but simply because something in the rhythm of the world has shifted, and Tom always knows when the music changes. Now, before you dismiss this as pure fantasy, consider what we know about both characters. Tom Bombadil exists outside the normal power structures of Middle-earth. Gandalf himself admits that Tom is his own master, unaffected by rings of power, older than memory, connected to Arda itself in ways that even the Valar don't fully understand. Meanwhile, Saruman represents the complete opposite, a being who fell precisely because he became obsessed with power, with control, with bending the world to his will. But here's what makes this encounter so compelling. Both Tom and Saruman are Ainur. They both participated in the music of creation, the Ainulindala that sang the world into being. Saruman, as Kurumo, was once a Maya of Auli, drawn to craft and knowledge. Tom's true nature remains one of Tolkien's greatest mysteries, but the professor hints that he might be something even older, possibly a spirit of Arda itself, present from the very beginning. So when these two meet in the ruins of Isengard, it's not just a conversation between a wizard and a strange forest dweller. It's a confrontation between two fundamentally different responses to existence itself. One chose the path of domination and fell into corruption. The other chose the path of acceptance and remained free. Imagine Tom's arrival at Orthanc. Saruman, brooding in his tower, suddenly hears singing drifting up from below. Not the harsh songs of orcs or the mechanical sounds of his war machines, but something pure and wild and utterly out of place in this industrial wasteland. He looks down and sees a figure in yellow boots and a blue coat, picking his way carefully through the debris, occasionally stopping to examine a broken gear or twisted beam with the curiosity of someone discovering interesting stones by a riverbank. This would be deeply unsettling for Saruman. Throughout his long fall from grace, he's grown accustomed to fear, to respect born of terror, to the careful calculations of other powerful beings. But Tom doesn't operate by those rules. He's not afraid, not calculating, not trying to gain advantage. He's just there, present in the moment, humming tunelessly while he explores the wreckage. When Tom finally reaches the base of Orthanc and calls up to Saruman, his words wouldn't be accusatory or triumphant. Instead, they might be something like, "Ho there, old friend of hammers and wheels. Come down and walk with old Tom. The stones here remember singing, though they've forgotten how to carry a tune." This casual familiarity, this complete lack of fear or judgment, would shake Saruman more than any threat. For centuries, he's been either revered as the head of the White Council or feared as a traitor and destroyer. But Tom treats him simply as another being in the world, worthy of attention but not of worship or terror. The conversation that follows would be unlike anything else in Tolkien's works. Tom might speak about the music of creation, about the joy that was meant to be woven into every note of existence. He might mention how the wheels and gears of Isengard could have been instruments of harmony instead of discord, how knowledge and craft were meant to celebrate the world, not dominate it. But here's the crucial difference. Tom wouldn't be preaching or lecturing, he'd be sharing the way he shares his joy with the hobbits in the old forest. There would be no condemnation in his voice, no suggestion that Saruman is beyond redemption. Tom exists outside the categories of good and evil that drive most of Middle-earth's conflicts. He simply is, and he accepts what is, while gently offering glimpses of what could be. For Saruman, this encounter would be profoundly disturbing. His entire identity has become built around his rebellion against the Valar, his rivalry with Gandalf, his alliance with Sauron, and ultimately his bitter isolation. But Tom doesn't fit into any of these frameworks. He's not an enemy to be defeated or an ally to be courted. He's just a reminder of something Saruman has forgotten, that existence itself can be enough, that joy doesn't need to be conquered or controlled. The most powerful moment might come when Tom mentions the ring, not Sauron's ring, which Saruman coveted, but rings in general, circles of power, cycles of music, the eternal return of seasons and songs. Tom might casually mention how he once held the One Ring and felt nothing but mild amusement at the fuss everyone made over it. This would devastate Saruman more than any defeat in battle, because it would reveal how small his great obsession truly was. Picture Tom pulling out a simple band of woven grass or twisted wood, tossing it in the air, and saying something like, "Rings and things, wheels and deals. Old Tom has seen them all, and they're all just circles in the end. Some sing sweetly, some clatter and clash, but none of them change the colour of the sunrise or the taste of clear water." This casual dismissal of everything Saruman has sacrificed his nature to obtain would force the fallen wizard to confront the emptiness at the heart of his rebellion. He gave up his immortal joy, his connection to the music of creation, his friendship with other Maiar, all for the sake of rings and wheels and the power to control others. And here stands someone who could have had all of that power and simply chose not to want it. But Tom's presence would offer something else too, a glimpse of what Saruman could still become, not a return to his original role as Kurumo the White, because that path is closed to him, but perhaps a different kind of existence, one based on acceptance rather than ambition, on joy rather than jealousy. The tragedy is that Saruman, by this point in his fall, might be too proud to accept such a gift. His corruption runs so deep that even this moment of genuine offering might seem like mockery to him. In Tolkien's actual narrative, Saruman's pride prevents him from accepting Gandalf's offer of redemption. How much more difficult would it be to accept grace from someone like Tom, whose very existence challenges everything Saruman has convinced himself about the nature of power and worthiness? Yet that's what makes this hypothetical encounter so poignant. Tom wouldn't be offering redemption in the traditional sense. He's not authorized to grant forgiveness or restore Saruman's position. Instead, he'd be offering something simpler and more radical. The possibility of contentment, of finding meaning in small things, of reconnecting with the fundamental joy of existence. The conversation might end with Tom inviting Saruman to come with him, not to the old forest necessarily, but to walk the roads of Middle-earth as they both once did in the early days of the world, to remember what it felt like to discover new things, to help rather than control, to participate in the ongoing song of creation rather than trying to conduct it. Saruman's response would reveal everything about his character at this crucial moment. Would pride win out, leading him to reject Tom's offer and continue on his path toward the scouring of the Shire and his eventual death? Or would some remnant of his original nature respond to this unexpected grace? In Tolkien's actual story, we know how Saruman's tale ends. But this imagined encounter suggests that even at his lowest point, other possibilities remained open. Tom Bombadil represents those possibilities, not through power or wisdom or authority, but simply through being authentically himself, joyfully present in each moment, connected to the deepest rhythms of existence. The real power of this scene lies not in whether Saruman accepts or rejects Tom's implicit offer, but in the reminder that such offers exist at all. In a world often dominated by conflicts between good and evil, light and shadow, Tom represents something different. The possibility of stepping outside those conflicts entirely, of finding meaning and joy independent of victories or defeats. This reflects one of Tolkien's deepest themes, that the most important battles aren't always the ones fought with swords and armies, but the quieter struggles within individual hearts. Saruman's greatest enemy wasn't Gandalf or the Rohirrim who destroyed his army, but his own pride and fear of insignificance. Tom's presence would force him to confront those internal enemies in a way that external defeats never could. The beauty of Tom Bombadil as a character is that he offers this same challenge to readers. In a culture obsessed with achievement, status, and control, Tom suggests that contentment might be found in simpler things, in attention to the present moment, in connection to the natural world, in acceptance of what is, rather than endless striving for what might be. When applied to Saruman's situation, this perspective becomes revolutionary. Instead of seeing his defeat as the end of his story, Tom's presence suggests it could be a beginning, the first step toward a different kind of existence, one based on humility rather than pride, service rather than dominion, joy rather than bitterness. Of course, the likelihood of Saruman accepting such a radical reorientation seems slim. His corruption runs too deep, his pride too entrenched. But that's precisely what makes Tom's imagined offer so powerful. It exists regardless of whether it's accepted. Grace doesn't depend on worthiness, and redemption doesn't require permission. The scene might conclude with Tom simply walking away, still humming his tuneless song, leaving Saruman alone with his thoughts and a glimpse of what freedom might look like. Whether the fallen wizard chooses to follow that glimpse or retreat deeper into his tower of pride would be his decision alone. This imagined encounter also illuminates something important about Tom Bombadil's role in Middle-earth's larger story. He's often dismissed as an odd character who doesn't quite fit into the main narrative, but meetings like this suggest his true significance. Tom represents the possibility of stepping outside the power struggles that dominate most of the story, of finding meaning and purpose independent of victory or defeat. In a world where even the wisest characters like Gandalf and Elrond are caught up in the great conflicts of their age, Tom maintains his independence and joy. This doesn't make him irrelevant to those conflicts, quite the opposite. His very existence proves that other ways of being are possible, that the struggles between good and evil, while important, don't encompass all of reality. So whether or not Tom Bombadil actually visited Saruman after Isengard's fall The possibility of such an encounter reveals something profound about both characters and about Tolkien's vision of redemption. Even in our darkest moments, even when we've fallen furthest from our original purpose, the invitation to joy and freedom remains open. We need only the courage to accept it. The question isn't whether Saruman deserved such grace. Grace, by definition, isn't about deserving. The question is whether he could overcome his pride enough to receive it. And that question remains open, not just for fictional characters, but for all of us who struggle with our own forms of pride, ambition, and the desire to control rather than participate in the ongoing song of existence. In the end, this imagined meeting between Tom Bombadil and Saruman serves as a reminder that redemption can come from the most unexpected sources, in the most unlikely moments, wearing muddy yellow boots and humming an old tune that somehow contains more wisdom than all the speeches of the wise.